The first voice came from grave 47. I was sweeping leaves near the old oak tree when I heard it, a faint whisper slipping through the night air. Cold, it said, low and cracked, like someone speaking through a mouth full of dirt. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The cemetery was empty. I was the only one there. Then it came again, clearer this time. It's so cold down here. The sound wasn't coming from the wind. It was coming from beneath the ground. My heart hammered so loud I could hear it in my ears. I took a few shaky steps backward, pointing my light at the headstone. The name carved into the marble read Mary Ellison, 1942 to 2020. I swallowed hard, staring at the grave as the voice whispered again, this time almost pleading, "Help me." And that's when the other graves started answering back. Dozens of voices, male, female, old, young, rose from the earth around me. Some were whispering, some crying, and some laughing. The ground seemed to hum beneath my boots, as if something alive was moving beneath the dirt. I dropped the broom and ran. But before I reached the gate, a deep, angry voice boomed from behind me. "Don't leave us here." I turned around and saw the soil of grave 47 begin to move. The earth cracked open, and then something reached out. I guess I should start from the beginning. My name's Eddie Parker, and I work nights at Hillcrest Cemetery in a small town in Indiana. I took the job 6 months ago, after my dad passed away. I needed the money, and the job came with a small guard shack and a radio. The pay wasn't great, but the boss said it would be peaceful. He wasn't wrong about that, at least not at first. Most nights, it was quiet. Too quiet. The air was always cold, even in July. The trees never seemed to move, and the fog liked to roll in after midnight, thick and heavy like wet wool. My job was simple. Make sure no one snuck in, no vandals, no grave robbers. But no one in their right mind wanted to break into a cemetery at night anyway. My first few shifts were boring. I'd make my rounds, check the gates, drink cheap coffee, and listen to the local AM station. Sometimes I'd talk to the graves, not because I believed they could hear me, but because silence can do strange things to your head when you're alone in the dark. "Evening, Mrs. Ellison," I'd mutter, sweeping the leaves off her headstone. "How's the view tonight?" It became a routine, like saying hello to neighbors. But the weird thing was, after a while, I started feeling like they were listening, like the air around the graves held a heartbeat. I told myself it was imagination. You have to, in a place like that. Until one night, something happened that I couldn't explain. It was just after 2 a.m., and I was walking by the old section, the one they stopped burying people in after the flood of '73. The graves there leaned sideways, like they were trying to escape the earth. My flashlight flickered out for a second, and when it came back on, I swear I saw movement. A shadow, quick and crawling, sliding between the headstones. I called out, thinking maybe it was a stray dog. "Hey, get out of there." But no sound came back. No bark, no rustle, just silence. Then my radio crackled. At first, I thought it was my boss. But instead of the usual static, I heard breathing, slow and raspy. Then a whisper so faint I almost missed it. "Behind you." I spun around so fast I nearly dropped the flashlight. Nothing. Just rows of graves stretching into the fog. I radioed the front office, but there was no signal. The line was dead. I told myself it was the batteries, that I was tired, hearing things. I went back to my shack, locked the door, and tried to shake it off. But the next morning, when I looked at the security footage from that night, something caught my eye. At exactly 2:03 a.m., the motion sensor camera near the old section had turned on by itself. And in one frame, just one, I saw what looked like a figure kneeling beside grave 47, a woman in a torn dress. And she was facing the camera. The next night, I almost didn't show up, but the paycheck kept me going. I told myself it was a trick of the light, maybe fog or dust. Still, something felt different when I clocked in. The air was heavy. The whole place smelled like wet soil and metal. My flashlight kept dimming, even though I'd replaced the batteries. By midnight, the fog had rolled in thick. I was sweeping near the oak tree when I heard the first sound, a muffled thump, like someone knocking from far away. I froze, listening. It came again, louder this time, from the direction of the graves. Thump, thump. It was rhythmic, slow, and wet. I walked closer, sweeping my light across the rows until it landed on grave 47. The dirt there was moving, just slightly, like something beneath it was shifting. "Probably an animal," I whispered, though I didn't believe it. The ground pulsed again, And that's when I heard her voice for the first time. Cold. It came from right under my feet. I staggered back, heart pounding. "Who's there?" "Cold," the voice repeated, soft and trembling. Then another joined it, a man's voice this time, older, sounding like it came from the grave next to hers. "Don't leave us." My brain screamed run, but my body wouldn't move. The ground beneath the graves began to shift again, the dirt rising and falling like waves on a dark ocean. I stumbled backward, hitting a tombstone. My flashlight flickered once more, and in that flicker, I saw something I'll never forget. Shadows, human-shaped, pressed against the inside of the earth. Dozens of them, their hands clawed upward through the soil, reaching for the surface. The wind picked up, carrying whispers all around me. Some begged, some screamed, some just cried. The sound built until it was deafening, 1,000 voices all pleading at once. I turned and ran, but before I could reach the gate, a voice louder than the rest boomed through the cemetery, so powerful it made the ground shake. "Don't leave us here." I looked back just in time to see grave 47 burst open. The earth split apart, and someone was crawling out. I froze. My flashlight slipped from my hand, hitting the ground and rolling in a slow circle. Its beam swung wildly across the cracked earth until it landed on the hole where grave 47 used to be. The dirt was split wide open, and something pale was moving inside. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a raccoon or a stray dog, but then a hand reached out. It was thin, almost skeletal, with skin stretched tight over the bones. The nails were dark, filled with soil. The fingers twitched once, then grabbed the edge of the grave. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. Then, slowly, the rest of her came up. It was a woman. Her hair hung in wet, tangled ropes around her face, and her clothes were torn and coated in dirt. She looked like she had been buried for years. Yet her eyes were wide open. They were white, no pupils, no color. Just white. She tilted her head at me, like she was trying to remember who I was. "Mary," I whispered, because I recognized her. Mary Ellison. The same name on the headstone. Her lips moved, but her voice didn't sound human. It was dry and hollow, like wind passing through an empty pipe. "It's cold." That's when the other graves began to stir. The earth moved in waves, one after another, as if something underneath was crawling its way up. I stumbled backward, tripping over a stone and landing hard on my side. My flashlight flickered again, but I didn't need it. The moon was bright enough to show what was happening. Hands. Everywhere. They broke through the dirt like weeds, pale fingers clawing at the air, scraping at tombstones, pulling at the ground. I could hear bones cracking, the squelch of wet soil as more shapes began to rise. I scrambled to my feet and ran for the gate, but the fog had thickened so much I could barely see 3 feet in front of me. Behind me, the voices grew louder. "Don't leave. Stay. You hear us now." One of the voices, deeper, rougher than the rest, shouted my name. "Eddie." I stopped cold. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. That voice, I knew that voice. It was my father's. He had been dead for 6 months. I'd buried him myself, 2 counties away. But I swear to you, I heard him as clear as day. "Eddie," he called again, closer this time. "Don't run from me, son." My throat tightened. "Dad," I whispered, and then I saw him. He was standing a few feet away, his body half hidden by the fog. His skin was gray, his eyes sunken, his lips cracked and blue. But it was him. I could see his work jacket, the same one he wore the day we buried him. He stepped forward. His boots made no sound on the gravel. "You shouldn't have taken this job," he said softly. "You opened the gate." "What gate?" I stammered. "The one that keeps us quiet." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And now they want out." I stumbled back, shaking my head. "This isn't real. You're not real." He smiled, or tried to. "You always said I worked myself into the ground. Guess you were right." That laugh, that horrible, hollow laugh, filled the air. Then he started to fall apart. Literally. His skin flaked off like dust, his body caving in on itself until all that was left was a dark stain on the ground. The fog swallowed it whole. I ran. I don't even remember how far. The next thing I knew, I was inside the maintenance shed, slamming the door shut and locking it with the metal latch. My chest heaved, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the flashlight. Outside, the voices were getting closer. I could hear them dragging their feet through the gravel. The sound of nails scratching against the shed walls made my stomach twist. Something started knocking, slow, steady, like a heartbeat. Knock. Knock, knock. Then silence. I held my breath, waiting. The air was thick and sour. The only sound was the hum of the radio sitting on the workbench behind me. Then it crackled to life on its own. A voice came through, faint, distant, like it was speaking from underground. Eddie, why did you leave us? I spun around, grabbed the radio, and threw it against the wall. It shattered, sparks flying. But the voice didn't stop. It was coming from everywhere now, the vents, the walls, even from under the floor. I covered my ears, shouting, "Stop! Please stop!" And then, all at once, they did. Dead silence. For a moment, I thought maybe it was over. Then I realized something was wrong. The air inside the shed had turned icy. My breath came out in white clouds. The smell of soil and rot filled my nose. I turned toward the window, and that's when I saw her, Mary Ellison. She was standing outside the shed, her face pressed against the glass. Her mouth was open too wide, her jaw stretching until it cracked. She was mouthing something over and over, but there was no sound. Then, just as I took a step closer, I heard it again. "It's cold." Her hand pressed flat against the window, and the glass began to frost over, the ice spreading fast. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The frost crawled across the walls, the floorboards, the ceiling. Then tap, 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 3 sharp knocks on the window. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the emergency flare from the shelf and yanked the door open, running into the fog. The cemetery was alive. The ground pulsed like a heartbeat, and the air buzzed with whispers. I could see figures now, dozens of them, moving slowly between the graves, men, women, even children, all pale and broken, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Some crawled, some stumbled, some floated just above the ground. I lit the flare, the red light cutting through the mist. "Stay back!" I screamed, waving it at them. "Stay away!" But they didn't stop. They moved closer, circling me. Mary stood in front, her head tilted, her mouth twisting into something like a smile. "You hear us now," she said. "So you belong here." I turned to run again, but something caught my leg, a hand cold and strong, wrapping around my ankle. I looked down, and there was a man half buried in the dirt, his mouth open in a silent scream. I kicked free, stumbling forward. The flare slipped from my hand and hit the ground. The light flickered, then went out. The world went black. And that's when I heard the bell. A single, deep chime rang out through the fog, shaking the air. The graves fell silent. Every figure froze. The bell rang again, once, twice, 3 times. Then, from somewhere behind me, a voice whispered in my ear. "The caretaker always joins the dead." I turned around, but there was no one there. Only the graves. And they were whispering my name.